go. Buy at the bottom. Buying at the bottom is everybody's dream. This morning minutes with myself, Michael Burgio, and Mark Novak, and we're going to be talking about buying at the bottom. Are we at the bottom, Mark, in your view of the property cycle?
I'm getting whispers. I haven't heard whispers 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard whispers a week ago. And this morning's news, last couple of days, whispers. We're accepting people coming onto media saying we've thrown the handbrake up at the right time, but we've thrown the handbrake up for too long now and are maybe a little bit too heavy. These people are coming thick and fast. Now, as soon as we get back to normal, and I'm not suggesting we get back to normal, but as soon as we get back to normal, everything goes back to normal. And that is not the bottom of the market.
100%. I feel good morning, Bill. Thanks for joining. Lisa, Jeff, always great to have you guys. What did I just do? Did I just delete Facebook? Okay, sorry.
No, you're live on Insta, live on Facebook.
Okay, there we go. Yes. So by 100%, Mark, I reckon now the talk has changed. Obviously, they're not going to lift all the restrictions up tomorrow, but that talk, that feeling that the worst is behind us, looking forward, I think if we're using the analogy of the bridge, we can see the end of the bridge, is my view.
Yeah.
And is that consent? You know what I mean? Like, you can see it now. Before, we didn't know when it would end and we didn't know where it was. So the point is, due to COVID-19, I reckon 80% of buyers have just put the handbrakes up, if not more, 80%, which means simple supply demand. When there's less competition, the better the price you can negotiate with the vendors. So I think it's safe. Our view, our consensus is we're probably at that bottom of this little micro cycle, and now is the time to buy. I think if you just look at realestate.com for the pricing of the last 2 weeks, there are some great buys out there, and that will not continue.
And look, that's our job, guys. Like we are built to rent stuff out. We are built to sell properties and to rent properties. So we're pretty much going back to business, and I don't feel bad about it because I feel like it's now a controlled environment. I feel like that we can. You know, there was a time when we're on the downward spiral, it was just like not appropriate to talk property. We went more into a consulting sort of mode. You know,
how can I help you mode?
How can I help you sort of mode? You know what I mean? We internally and externally and social and all that stuff. So, but now it feels like that, you know, there's a lot more people out there selling hope. And I think that, look, we're definitely not out of it. We're definitely not even close to out of it. I think there's two big threats. One is the health one. And like we did a story on a little while ago saying it's a double-edged sword. The other one's an economic one. Now, the economic recovery is going to be much harder and much longer than what the health one is. But either way, it just does feel like we're nearing the bottom.
Yeah, because let's face it, the government had to act how they did, because what happens if it did kill 50% of people who had it? You had to have that worst case scenario. And now with the time that's passed, we basically know that's not the case. So let's power through, basically. And the support we're getting online, Mark, Bill goes, getting ready for the market to jump again. Luke says cheap. Bill said all my developers are now gearing up to build again. I agree. Lisa Kramer, I agree. Back to business. Luke Moroney, slow growth. Agree, Mark. I think 100% now people know it's not basically what the ultimate worst case scenario was. We see the end, and that means people are going to get back into mode. Like when the builders start thinking, okay, we're starting to building, then it's going to accelerate that way. So I think exciting times. I definitely feel we could have, let's say we've gone down 5% across the board due from January or February, my view
maybe,
is we'll go
maybe
up.
even 3 weeks. Maybe
Yeah,
even
3
2 or
weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yes.
I reckon,
So
yeah.
I reckon we will probably get that 5% back within a week and probably have a bump of 10%. So I think there could be a swing of 15% post. That's exactly right. The fundamentals of encouragement to buy are still there. Money's cheap. And while that's cheap, I believe it's gonna continue to grow, especially now that the government's we're in more debt. Property is a big source of income for our economy, and it stimulates our economy, pays down debt through capital gains tax and stamp duty, and stimulates the economy, because I think you said it before, Mark, every dollar spent in real estate has a flow-on effect of $4 outside of that transaction, i.e. valuers, i.e. solicitors, i.e. furniture removalists, i.e. all this other stuff just has that flow-on effect.
Absolutely.
So the point of what we're getting across today is now sort of that bottom.
It is, but you know what? We've been through pandemic boot camp. And I don't think we're not going to have to in our lifetimes. I've got a funny feeling we're going to need pandemic boot camp again. I don't think this is the last one. And as we had a bit of a chat in the office yesterday across our teams, and it was one of those chats that we said, look, the reality is it was almost like a war that we all sort of went through. I've got to say, coming out the other end, I'm going to be mentally stronger. Coming out of the other end, I'm going to be a person. A lot of the core principles of what I went into this pandemic with, I'm going to come out with stronger. Do you know what I mean? So I know I was having a chat with you this morning about it, Michael.
Just losing you on Instagram. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I know I was having a chat with you this morning about it, Michael. I think a lot of the principles that we've gone in on, it's like I've always been a believer of property and how solid property has been, and it has proven to do that. It's actually the reason why I invested into property. I think when we're coming out and looking back on this, I think we're going to be like, yep, that's it. It's going to be an affirmation that we were doing the right thing.
100%. And for the generation like Gen Y, say my generation, who have always heard our parents and grandparents say, save for a rainy days, earn a dollar, save this, like just that ethos, which was very strong. What's about baby boomers? That generation, baby boomers kept it, but whittled down. And then Gen Y, fucking smashed avocado every morning. Like, no, just none of it. I think this will make a much better generation Y, and the next Gen X, I think, is the next one. Will just be far better. But
a lot of people are angry about China and the way they done it and stuff like that. And I was talking to a mate the other day about it, and I was just saying it's sort of like a bushfire that had to happen. It's irrelevant where it started or how it started. Like at the end of the day, there was going to be a pandemic in our generation, in our life. This was it. Maybe there's going to be another one. I don't know, but I do reckon the positive. I know we're spruiking. It is possibly the bottom of the market. Could be wrong. Yeah. We're not financial advisors, but if it's not the bottom of the market, I still believe it's a good time to buy. If it is the bottom of the market, I still believe it's a good time to buy. So, and then now I'm seeing pieces of media that are coming out that people aren't shooting down, but people are supporting. That points to me that it is, now again, the pandemic is one thing and the economy is one thing. I get that we're not going to recover that quickly. It's probably
and Luke says the economic is worse than war. The economic is worse than war. The economy, this is worse than a war. Economy-wise, this is worse than war. And I think he's hit the nail on the head there which is where I think you were just leading into, weren't you, Mark?
Yeah, and it's. I don't think we're, potentially we're not at the bottom of that economic thing, but I think of the pandemic thing, that we are. So it's not only that, but by spending, it actually helps. Do you know how we've talked about? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just playing around with the audio because Instagram keeps dropping out, so I missed a bit of it. So I was just turning the TV on. But yeah, spending.
Do you know how we talk about loving local and spending local?
Yes.
I think as people, it's really, really important. I think if you're hoarding your cash at the moment, I think you're circumventing or you're cutting the circulation off part of the body.
Yes.
So, another thing, if it's not the bottom of the market and you actually are spending, it's actually supporting your community.
Yes.
So things that you need to get done that are necessary to get done, I think get done, because it's whether that's upgrading your house or whether that's going to get a haircut, it's very, very important at the moment to keep that moving around, because stockpiling cash, no one is admitting it. I don't know, but I have heard on a lot of people that I know that are on assistance, because we're speaking with there's people that are better off, that are saving more, that are better
forming
off,
better habits.
Yeah. Now I'm not hearing from those people. It's a little bit embarrassing for them. They're not going to be gloating, but I'm hearing from the people that are in pain, and they're the people that we've all got to circle around and help. And the way we can help is to spend, and the way we can by us spending, it's circulating the love, and it's helping the locals, it's helping the economy, and I think bottom of the market is a good reason to spend.
Yeah, Mark, do you feel, and I'll put this out to Luke, Bill, everyone watching there, do you think we moved away from that pride, or that 30, 40 years it was like own your own home, own where you live, buy. That was like the Australian dream, the American dream. Every dream was like own your home. And then regardless of what reason, prices went up, all that, regardless of that, I feel the last 5 years has slipped into a generation that it's okay to rent. You will be a renter. Now that we've gone through this, tenants have experienced being at the mercy of a landlord with can I pay or can't I pay? Do you think that's going to really make people go, I want to own where I live. I don't want to be at the mercy of someone else. I want to own. I want to have I just want to have that security. Do you think people will come out of this going, I want to own where I live?
Well,
rather than being
answer this. Were tenants chopped up harder than owner occupiers?
I still believe yes. In the long haul,
so
pressure,
if you're an owner
loss,
occupier,
no growth, no asset.
If you're an owner occupier, worst case scenario, you and your wife lost your job, and you froze your mortgage, and the government assisted you through this time. If you're a tenant, now that was all very easy to do, by the way. The application to government, the freezing of the mortgage, very easy. If you're a tenant, you and your wife lost your job.
Yes.
So no money coming in. The assistance was pretty easy. But
you only got $750 a week, where the owner occupier, that goes to food, the renter, that goes to rent and food.
But you and your wife,
and at the end of it, but then at the end of it, you've got,
and you're still paying rent, and you're arm wrestling with the real estate agent who's arm wrestling with the landlord, and that arm wrestle is still going on, by the way. Yeah, I reckon you're right. I reckon there's an incentive now more than ever to own your destiny. If you look at how you were treated in the last 4 weeks as a tenant, and if you look how you were treated as an owner occupier the last 4 weeks, however you got there with jobs, however you got there with owning or renting, it is irrelevant. I reckon you were treated. The byproduct is life was a little bit easier to navigate through as an owner occupier rather than a tenant. Now, I haven't even done the maths, Michael, on a mortgage versus rent, because at the moment, tenants are paying more than what the owner is paying on a mortgage. Fact. So that's almost like the double whammy, that if I was a tenant, it would be in the back of my memory that I'd be sitting on a 2% interest rate. You know, it would be almost half, Michael. So if I was in a $600,000 one-bedroom unit, my mortgage could potentially be 12 grand a year, and my rent could potentially be 25 grand a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now that's resi. Look at Now look at commercial. You've got a business. You pay, let's say, $2,000 a week in rent, and you pay $2,000 a week in rent. And your business makes $2,000. That's where a lot of people are forgetting. Everyone's saying the landlords are copying, which they are. They're losing half their rent and not getting it back. But look at from a tenant's point of view, you have $2,000 in rent, and let's say you make $2,000 profit that you live on. That's everything. That $2,000 is gone.
Yep.
The $2,000 of rent is still there. Let's say you pay half. The assistance you get from the government doesn't even cover your rent, and there's nothing for food. Nothing for food. Now, if you own the shop, the $2,000 a week profit gone. That $2,000 in rent would probably really be $500 mortgage. We know it's a lot more in commercial, the difference compared to resi. So that $2,000 rent you don't have, the $500 mortgage a week, you paused, the $700 from the government or whatever it is for food. Far better off.
But don't forget, guys, everyone thinks, because it's a current problem, everyone thinks it's a forever problem.
Yes.
We've really got to be careful about that. COVID-19, it is clear, is a 3, 6, 9 or 12-month problem. That's all you're modeling. All your modeling that you're doing at the moment should be around that in terms of health-wise, not economic. So, at the end of the day, that's promising news as well. That's really promising. So, okay. So what we're talking about is this morning, just the takeaways from today are, is it the bottom of the market? So is it actually a good time to get in and buy? Potentially we can translate that to rent as well, because rents are at probably an all-time low, and sales are at an all-time low in the last couple of weeks. I'm not being silly about pricing. We're still high on rentals and sales, but in that interim period. So your answer to that out of today's chat takeaways?
Yes, definitely. The power of owning. So there's a lot of people who may have chose to play the stock market or do something else and buy a property, because I think that's where we were going. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, do this. Everyone's looking for this fast money, short money, rather than putting it in an asset. So I think a lot of coming out of this and the talk today is really look at it. If you can buy, I think we're going to shift towards that way. Definitely, I believe it's the bottom of this cycle. Now that the talk's positive, lockout, all this, it's like, unless we get a second wave, even if we do though, people know it's not a 50% fatality. Like it's not going to have that fear and I think downward pressure on properties. So I think now's definitely the bottom. People waiting. I think people need to get real for sale hardship sales. It's not happening now. It probably won't happen, because you can basically not be forced to sell your home at the moment, because you can pause your mortgage for 6 months. So people waiting for that. And then in 6 months' time, we're going to be back open again. So you're going to have the surge of new buyers. So let's say there are a couple.
Like I said, you're going to go around. It's going to cost you double.
Yeah.
Like, so mortgagee in possession if you can't pay the mortgage at the moment, you need double to pay the rent at the moment for the same
Yeah,
thing. So,
so true.
mortgagee in possessions was clear when interest rates were at 9% because you were renting at 5%.
Yep.
It was half the price to go and rent. Now it's double the price to go and rent. So I don't know about this mortgagee in possession things. I don't think it's going to happen, dude.
Yeah, neither. And the government won't either. The banks won't. So I don't see it happening. Therefore,
Well, that's
now's
right.
the time to buy.
The government's there propping everyone up, saying we're here for you. Like, talk about doing a great job. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I
Alrighty,
know
I think
we're going to have to pay for it later, but I reckon my takeaway is in terms of pandemic, we are at the bottom of the pandemic, and yes, it's going to rip on the way out. And I keep using the example of a twister, a tornado. It's ripped in. We're right in the middle of it. Easter, silence, quietness. In the middle of a tornado, it is quiet and it is quiet. And then now the tornado is going to rip out as well. So, but it's the bottom of that curve, in my opinion. If I had a guess, I am not a financial advisor. I am only punting. So our message today is, if you can buy it now, if you're fortunate and blessed enough to get a loan and you can buy it now, because the banks aren't doing new loans at the moment because no one wants to line up because everyone's gun shy. So line up for a loan. And if you can rent it now, you're renting it at an all-time low. Go for gold.
100%. As Luke says, land is gold. It's true. Mark Insta cut out and dropped out, but that's fine. We'll strip it from Facebook. So by now, in our view, we're at the bottom of the pandemic cycle. That's it. That's a wrap. Appreciate anything else you want to add, Mark? Well, that's it for today.
Go hard.
Go hard or go home. A lot of people are home, so all good.
It's time for some work.